You've lived with yourself your entire life. You've looked into the mirror thousands of times, memorized your face, learned your name, and built an entire identity based on your thoughts, memories, and roles in the world. But here's a question that might surprise you. What if you've never actually met your true self? Sounds strange, doesn't it? You may think, of course I know who I am. But what if most of what you call you, your habits, emotions, titles, and beliefs, are just layers built over time, like clothes you forgot you were wearing? Imagine realizing that your inner world, the voice in your head, and even your deepest feelings might not truly be you, but just passing processes, echoing patterns shaped by the past. In a world obsessed with personality tests, self-improvement, and personal branding, what if the most profound discovery isn't about adding more, but letting go of what you're not? So, who is the you that exists beyond all those labels? Let's explore that mystery together in today's video. You've never actually met yourself. Let me ask you something. If someone asked you, "Who are you?" what would you say? Most people would respond with something like, "I'm Sarah," or "I'm an artist," or "I'm a mother." They might mention where they were born, what they do for work, or describe a few traits they believe define them, like, "I'm introverted," or "I overthink things." But here's the quiet truth, often overlooked. Everything you would say in that answer could change. Your name can change. Your job can vanish. Your interests, beliefs, relationships, even your memories can shift or fade with time. So if all of those things can change, then what part of you is actually you? From childhood, we inherit a sense of identity like a script written by other people. Our parents, our schools, our cultures, all telling us who we are, what we should be, and how we should act. We internalize it. And over the years, we begin to believe in this story so deeply that we stop questioning it. We walk through life with the silent assumption, "I know who I am." But what if you don't? What if the you believe in is just a carefully assembled image, built from memories, assumptions, reactions, and fleeting mental impressions? Buddhism teaches that what we usually call the self is, in fact, a collection of processes, not a permanent entity. This is not just a spiritual concept. It's an invitation to look at your experience as it actually is. Have you ever watched your mind? I mean, really watched it, like a quiet observer on a hill, watching the clouds roll by. You might begin to notice something strange. You are constantly changing. Your emotions shift from joy to irritation in seconds. Your thoughts jump from planning tomorrow's meeting to remembering something awkward you said 5 years ago. Even your opinions, things you once held onto so tightly, evolve over time. And yet we continue to say, "This is me." But if you are constantly changing, thought to thought, moment to moment, who is this me you're talking about? It's like walking through a house of mirrors. Each reflection shows a version of you, one shaped by fear, another by desire, another by memory. But none of them are truly you. They're just temporary reflections shaped by the lighting, the angle, the moment. What makes this even more fascinating and more disorienting is that we rarely take time to question these reflections. We assume the voice in our head is our voice. We assume the patterns we live by are ours. We assume the stories we tell ourselves are facts. And in that assumption, we stop truly meeting ourselves. The Buddha, in his teachings, gently unraveled this illusion. He didn't ask us to believe in a new idea of self. He asked us to observe directly and honestly what is happening within us. He spoke of the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. These 5 constantly interact, rise, fall, transform. There is no unchanging self within them, only movement. But because the process is so seamless, so convincing, we believe there must be someone behind it all, some core identity. It's like watching a movie so well made that you forget it's a projection on a screen. So here's the real invitation of this chapter. Let go of the idea that you already know yourself, because maybe, just maybe, you've spent your whole life relating to an image, a pattern, a habit, not the true essence of what you are. And perhaps the most profound journey you'll ever take is not out into the world, but inward, toward the one person you've never truly met. Have you ever sat in silence and suddenly realized your mind has a mind of its own? You try to be present, but a random memory pops in. You try to meditate, and suddenly you're planning lunch, replaying arguments, imagining outcomes. These thoughts come and go like waves on the shore. And here's the strange part. You didn't choose most of them. They just showed up. So here's the deeper question. If you're not choosing your thoughts, then who is? And even more mysteriously, who is watching them happen? Buddhism invites us to look behind the curtain of this mental play, to stop identifying with every passing thought and ask, not philosophically, but experientially, is there really a thinker behind the thinking? Or are we simply witnessing the spontaneous unfolding of conditions? This is where the teaching of anatta, often translated as not self or no self, gently shakes the foundation of what we assume to be true. It doesn't mean that you don't exist. It means that the version of you that you cling to, the one that feels in control, central, constant, is actually a beautiful illusion. A useful one at times, sure, but still a mental fabrication. Let's try a little experiment. Close your eyes for a few moments and try to locate the self. Not your thoughts, not your feelings, but the self you believe is at the center of it all. What do you find? Is there a fixed entity behind the scenes? Or just a stream of sensations, images, impressions, all passing through awareness? Most people, when they do this, honestly, report something surprising. They can't find someone inside. Only awareness remains, clear, open, wordless. This echoes the Buddha's own realization under the Bodhi tree. As he sat in deep meditation, observing the mind without clinging or resistance, he didn't find a permanent soul or identity. He saw instead a river of causes and conditions, thoughts arising based on contact, memory, emotion, karma, and falling away just as quickly. There was no puppeteer behind the mind, no master controller, only process, only change. It's a startling realization, especially in the West, where our culture emphasizes individuality, self-worth, and personal identity. We're taught to find ourselves, to be ourselves, to express who we are. But what if the self we're expressing was never solid to begin with? This doesn't mean you're not unique. It doesn't mean you shouldn't care for your life or your path. But it does mean that what you think of as you, your moods, your reactions, your inner dialogue, are not you in the way you believe. They are happening within you, yes, but they are not you. The Buddha described this using the analogy of a chariot. If you take away the wheels, the frame, the reins, what remains is just the idea of a chariot. In the same way, if you take away the body, the feelings, the perceptions, the thoughts, and consciousness, what remains is not a fixed self, but the awareness in which it all unfolds. And here's the beautiful twist. Realizing this doesn't leave you empty. It sets you free. Free from the pressure to always be someone. Free from the stories that keep repeating in your head. Free to rest in the pure, open awareness that doesn't need to prove anything, because it's already whole. So, if there's no one behind the curtain, what's left? A mirror, clear, reflective, able to hold everything, but not caught in anything. And in that stillness, in that spaciousness, you may discover not a new identity, but a profound peace. There is a quiet moment, often unexpected, when you pause long enough to sense something beneath all the noise. It might happen during meditation, while walking alone in nature, or in the stillness just before falling asleep. In that moment, you feel as though you're brushing up against something subtle but profound. Not a thought, not an emotion, not even a memory, but a presence. Calm, silent, deeply aware, and for many people, that presence feels almost unfamiliar. It's like meeting a stranger you somehow recognize. The truth is, that presence has always been there, watching, listening, experiencing. But we've spent so much time wrapped up in the content of our minds, our plans, regrets, judgments, opinions, that we've never truly met the one who is simply aware of it all. This is not poetic metaphor. It's direct experience, accessible in the space between thoughts. Buddhism points to this awareness as the foundation of all inner clarity. It's not personal, not made of memory or identity. It's simply the capacity to know. The open space in which every sensation, emotion, and idea appears and disappears. And yet, because this awareness doesn't have a voice, we often overlook it. We mistake the commentary in our minds as me, the stream of thoughts narrating our day, rehashing conversations, fantasizing about the future. But that voice is not the self. It's a habit, a pattern, a conditioned response built from years of reacting and grasping. The deeper truth is quieter than words, and to touch it, we must learn to become still. Stillness is not about stopping life. It's about stepping back from the constant rush of identification. We are not our stress, our anger, our need to achieve. These are weather systems. We are the sky that holds them. When you practice mindfulness, even for a few seconds, you create space between the thinker and the thought. You realize you can observe a feeling without becoming it. You can notice anxiety without being swallowed by it. This simple shift from identification to observation is the doorway to real freedom. And the more you rest in that awareness, the more natural it feels. What once seemed like a stranger begins to feel like home. This is not about discovering a new version of yourself. It's about returning to what's always been there, clear, spacious, steady. You don't have to fix or perfect anything. You only need to see what's real. In a world obsessed with becoming, it's radical to simply be. And yet, that's the essence of waking up. Recognizing that you are not the storm, not the story, not the striving, but the stillness in which all of it rises and falls. And in that stillness, perhaps for the first time, you truly meet yourself. Real freedom doesn't begin with escaping the world. It begins with seeing through the illusions that keep us trapped, especially the illusion of a fixed, unchanging self. For most of us, the self is a deeply personal idea. It's the voice we defend when we feel criticized, the identity we polish for others to admire, the story we quietly tell ourselves when no one's around. But the Buddha's teaching on anatta, not self, reveals something radical. The self we believe in so strongly is a construct, a patchwork of memories, labels, and emotional patterns held together by habit and craving. And here's the irony. The more tightly we cling to that idea, the more we suffer, because life is constantly changing, and when we try to make a permanent me out of impermanent thoughts and experiences, it's like trying to build a house on a river. There's a kind of exhaustion that comes with constantly managing the image of who we think we are. We feel we need to maintain our reputation, uphold our opinions, defend our past, control our future. But none of these efforts bring peace. Instead, they keep us locked in tension, always becoming, never arriving. Buddhism offers another way, not through suppression, not by rejecting the self, but by seeing clearly that the I we defend so fiercely is not solid. It's a process, not a person, a performance, not a permanent presence. And when this is seen not just as an idea, but as direct experience, something remarkable happens. The false self begins to loosen, the need to prove, to compare, to impress. It all starts to soften. There is a kind of lightness in not being someone. Not because you don't matter, but because you no longer have to be anything other than awake. This kind of freedom doesn't mean you disappear. It means you're no longer imprisoned by your identity. You can still feel, still care, still live fully, but without the constant tension of having to be someone. You become like space, open, available, capable of holding joy and sorrow without being defined by either. And in this space, compassion naturally arises. You no longer see others as threats to your ego or competitors in your story. You see them as fellow travelers, also trying to make sense of their own reflections. And that recognition, that shared vulnerability, becomes the seed of true connection. The Buddha never asked us to destroy the self. He invited us to stop mistaking the mask for the face. He understood that behind every false identity is the potential for awakening, not to a better version of ourselves, but to the timeless awareness that's been here all along. So the question is no longer, who am I? But rather, what am I clinging to, and is it helping me be free? Letting go isn't a loss, it's a return to stillness, to simplicity, to spaciousness. And perhaps, as the layers fall away, what's left isn't a person at all, but peace itself. So how do you begin to meet yourself? The one that's always been there but has gone unnoticed? You don't need to pack a bag, leave your life behind, or climb a mountain. This is not a journey of distance, but of depth. The entrance to this path is right where you are, right now, in this very breath. It begins with something deceptively simple, awareness, not as a concept, but as a living presence. When you bring gentle, non-judgmental attention to your moment-to-moment experience, to the sensations in your body, the rhythm of your breath, the thoughts passing through your mind, you begin to reconnect with that inner space. That space is not somewhere else. It's not mystical. It's the part of you that notices without needing to change or control. And the more often you return to it, the more familiar it becomes. Start small. When you wake up in the morning, before reaching for your phone or diving into the rush of the day, take a single conscious breath. Feel it enter, feel it leave. Notice the aliveness of your body, the heartbeat, the rising and falling of your chest. Ask yourself gently, what is aware of this? Don't try to answer, just feel into it. Throughout the day, pause for a few seconds whenever you remember. Washing your hands, waiting in line, hearing a bird. These moments are doorways, not to another world, but to the reality that's been here the whole time, waiting for you to notice. And when difficult emotions arise, frustration, sadness, anxiety, don't rush to fix them. Don't suppress them. Instead, treat them like guests knocking at your door. Invite them in with curiosity. Feel where they show up in your body. Notice the stories your mind begins to tell. And then, without resistance, simply stay, not in the emotion, but in the awareness of it. That shift from being the emotion to witnessing it is one of the most powerful things a human being can experience. It's how we begin to loosen the grip of the false self, not by fighting it, but by seeing it clearly. Over time, this practice becomes less about effort and more about recognition. You begin to notice the stillness behind your thoughts, the silence underneath your inner noise. And gradually you realize that peace is not something you have to find. It's something you return to by remembering what's always been here. That's how you begin to meet yourself, not through striving, but through stillness, not by becoming more, but by letting go. And in that gentle letting go, you don't vanish, you awaken. Not to an idea, not to a label, but to the direct, luminous experience of being alive, right here, right now, just as you are. And maybe now, after all this reflection, you're beginning to sense it, that quiet, unshakable awareness beneath the noise. The self you've spent so long trying to define, improve, and protect might not be something to fix, but something to softly release. Not because it was wrong, but because it was never truly you. It was a reflection, a role, a beautiful mask in the great play of life. What remains when the roles fall away is not emptiness, but a kind of sacred stillness, a space wide enough to hold the entire human experience without breaking. That stillness, that gentle knowing, is not something far away. It is you, and the more you return to it, through mindfulness, compassion, presence, the more natural it feels. You don't need to become anything. You only need to remember. If this video resonated with something deep inside you, not just as an idea, but as a subtle inner recognition, then I invite you to stay on this path with us. Subscribe to this channel if you'd like to keep exploring these quiet truths together. Leave a comment below. What part of today's reflection touched you the most? And if you know someone who might need this message, someone who's been searching for peace in all the wrong places, share this with them. Because sometimes all it takes is one moment of stillness to remember who we've been all along. Thank you for watching, and may you meet yourself gently, fully, and often in every breath.